Welcome to another episode of Down the Barrel Podcast with Jimmy and Dino.
And sometimes Jared.
Down the Barrel Podcast is brought to you by the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association
and Wolf.Report.
Dead Nuts Outdoors, creators of the most realistic 2D archery targets on the market. Practice how you hunt. Hit it dead nuts. Visit deadnutsoutdoors.com to gear up.
All right, welcome back to Down the Barrel. Today we are here with Sam Tumberg, owner of Purpose-Filled Habitat Management. How you doing, Sam?
Well, not too bad. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad we can get everything together. And I know I've been watching a few of your YouTube videos here and there, and obviously we know a little bit about you, but why don't you tell us about you? You know, where you're from and kind of even about the Purpose-Filled Habitat Management, how that got started.
So I'm from New York Mills, Minnesota. That's over in Otter Tail County. So we're kind of in that perfect transition between the big woods and then eventually hit kind of the big ag open prairie area. And I grew up on a dairy farm, same farm that I do all my habitat work on. When I was 16 years old, we ended up selling the cattle, but we kept all the ag land and kept all the land that I get to play around with and do all this stuff where I'm trying to create better deer hunting for our family, but also get the farm to hold more deer. And I'm just a guy that, from a young age, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I can still remember, just waiting for my dad to get back from the rifle stand and couldn't wait to hear the stories about, how the hunt went. And then as I got old enough to hunt, I picked up a rifle and did that for a few years. And then when I was 15, I picked up a bow and just absolutely fell in love with it. And the rest is history. So, and then when I was probably in my, late teens into early 20s, I started thinking about the habitat side of hunting. And as I got into my later 20s, it really took off. And then I wasn't living in this area at that time, but when I was 30, me and my family moved back here, and that's when I went all in with it and did a ton of stuff out at the farm. But then after a few years of that, I was starting to do stuff out on family land, friend land, even guys that were reaching out because I started a YouTube channel and Facebook page. I think it was in, January 2019, I think. And started having guys reaching out, and they were asking, if I could come do stuff out at their property. So I was doing that for a little bit and was doing it for free. And then eventually it kind of hit a tipping point, and probably right around 2020 where I turned it into a business. And it was a side hustle to start with. But then eventually it just became a very, very busy second job. Because I'm sure if I logged the hours I put into the habitat work, it would probably equal what I do as a school social worker. That's my day job. So, and I've loved it. I've loved every minute of it. It's been nice to have this business. It feels like I get to kind of hunt all year round, and it's just been fun to see the results, not just on my property, but on all the properties that I get to go work on.
Well, that's pretty cool. So how many acres do you guys have now?
So our family farm is 270 acres. It's probably, I think it's about 110 tillable. We probably got 10 to 12 acres of food plots. And then it's a pretty good mix of hardwoods. There's probably 20-ish acres of swamp, quite a bit of fallow area. That's really fun ground for me because that's, it started out as a blank slate, and I've been able to do a lot with that to build up the habitat in those spots. But yeah, it's a nice diverse mix. We even got a few ponds on the property. Some really nice upland sites, but then we also got this massive swamp that bumps up to the back part of our farm, which holds a ton of deer. So that's my biggest challenge, is just trying to figure out ways to pull deer out of the swamp, because that it's great native habitat in there, lots of nice islands and dry spots, and not as much hunting pressure as there is on the high ground. So that's been a big challenge, but it's been
Yeah.
fun because
Right.
with the habitat work, we've been able to, run into a few of those nicer bucks that used to hang out down in there.
Gotcha. So surrounding your property, is it all private land kind of surrounding, or do you have some public on some edges or anything? Or
It's all private. The closest public's probably
Okay.
2 to 3 miles away. So, and pretty.
Gotcha.
There's some good hunters around us. And then there's also plenty of meat hunters too. Not saying that meat hunters aren't good hunters, but they tend to.
I know. I heard that. I was like, hold on a second there, bud.
We're getting personal
there's some guys that
already.
hold out too. They're willing to do a few sits before they fill
Right.
the tag. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Awesome. Well, I think for myself personally, and probably a lot of our listeners, I'm curious how you approach that management in the swamplands. How do you best? So I'm looking at your description of your YouTube channel, and you say most folks leave 90+% of their land completely unmanaged for wildlife. And I would say that definitely describes me with my small piece of land. And that's because probably 90+% of that is swampland. And what can I do as a landowner with swampland to make that as beneficial as possible for my deer and wildlife populations?
Swamp is really hard.
Yeah.
We're very limited with what we can do in those areas. But the very first thing I'm looking for, if I'm on a property with swampland, is any high rises that exist in that swamp where we can manage the habitat. If I can find high rises, I'm sure you've walked your property, that's where you're going to find the deer beds. So, if there's an island in that swamp, that's going to definitely be something that's going to stand out. And if that island's full of, like aspen is one that we see a lot on swamp islands, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start doing some cutting on that island, and I'm going to build up that cover component and, when I cut aspen, I also want to make sure I leave plenty of space for the deer to lie down, lots of trails, lots of pockets through it. But my biggest goal is to get that aspen regenerating so I can bring the food and cover back down to the deer. So that would be one thing I'm looking for. If it's not an aspen island, if it's a hardwoods island, I might work to release those oak trees, open them up and increase that acorn production, as well as start to, again, do some cutting in the timber so I can get that timber and that cover regenerating back down by the deer's level. Those cuts can be flush cuts. If there's certain types of trees, I might do some hinge cuts. But I'm just looking to create more cover down where the deer exists, because the deer's world is 6 feet and under. So So I'll focus on the dry spots first. And then if it's a really wet swamp, that's where it gets really, really micromanagey. I was just on a property actually out by Green Bay about a week and a half ago, and there was a bunch of windfall through it, and it was a very, very wet swamp, but there were spots where we would find like uprooted trees, and where those uprooted trees were, there might be a dry spot, but there could have been a tree tipped on top of that dry spot. So my advice to that landowner was bust out the chainsaw and start clearing off those little high dry rises so that the deer have space to lie down, and then cut trails from one dry spot to the next. So, other things you can do, black spruce grow really, really well in wet. You can't plant them where they're going to be underwater, but if you can find spots where they're going to at least get some dry at some point throughout the year, you can add black spruce, red osier, dogwood are great ones to add in swamp areas. Gray dogwood.
Jared, you have a lot of black spruce on your property.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But no, that all sounds like really good advice.
Well, for when it comes to swamps. So,
Right.
Sam, what's the smallest chunk of property you've actually had to manage or come up with a plan for?
probably about 15 or 20 acres, I would say.
Yeah.
So I've had them, I've had them from 15 to 20 acres all the way up to, I think the biggest I've done is like 700. So,
Okay.
Nice. And you said you were out of Green Bay?
yeah. Yep.
Wow. So you that was one of our questions on here. So how far do you travel? I mean, or what's your, obviously that's probably one of those oddball things. I mean, I can't imagine you're out there all the time, but what's your normal area of, working?
So I try to stick to Minnesota. I have a lot of opportunity to go out of state. I get a lot of guys reaching out from Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
a few other states.
Pennsylvania.
But my goal is my goal is if I can sleep in my own bed at night, that's ideal. I don't love traveling where I have to do overnights. I have taken a few jobs a little further away. The Green Bay one, I was able to kind of lump a few guys together. And then the problem is, as I go out there, I end up liking the guys a lot, and then they want to have me back. And so then I end up going back, and then you do some work, and then you want to see the progress of the work you did the year before. And yeah, so you kind of get looped into this is my third year that I went out to Green Bay this year. So, but for the most part, I try to stick mostly to Minnesota, and I've been fortunate that most of my work has been within a couple of hours of home. So,
yeah, well, that's good. But I have to ask, since you've been out in Green Bay, you are a Vikings fan, right?
oh yeah, yep.
All right.
Just wanted to make sure.
Because we would be ending this interview right now if you had a different answer.
Oh man, last year you should have heard them when I went to. We went and grabbed a burger after one day of cutting, and everybody at the bar, once they found out I was from Minnesota, they had a few things to say to me, but they were all fired up about the draft.
So you put some weed killer on their stuff, right?
Right. So you tell them what to do, but at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, we're going to get rid of all the deer here.
Yeah, we're going to go manage the habitat around Green Bay to get the deer to come to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was out there just seeding a bunch of buckthorn all over the place. I'm just
Perfect.
Yeah, because Jim, you've got a few acres, 7.
Well, no,
Wow.
more than that. I think about 9. I'm butted up against, I don't know, 300 acres of public land.
Yeah.
And my main goal in my property is to try to get those deer from public land to go through my property to the ag land on the other side of my property. So I just want to kind of be a route. And I used to feed them during the summer to kind of train them to come through there. And now we can't do that in Itasca County.
Right.
Because of CWD. So now I don't get to really do anything.
Yeah.
So I think I can still do food plots.
Yeah. And we tried a food plot a few years ago. Obviously, we probably didn't do it the right way.
Well, we definitely didn't do it the right way.
We tilled some ground up. We threw some seed out. And then we didn't touch it. And they're like, oh, let's see what grows. Let's not spray it. Let's not mow it. We didn't do it the right way.
I guess on that, we could ask Sam. Sam, what would you do to make a deer's route just come through your property when you have a situation like that? Is there something you do other than, is it just food plots? Give them something good to eat?
Well, and I don't mean to cut you off here, Sam, but we're kind of jumping ahead because you are a contributor to our Whitetails magazine. And in our summer issue, you wrote an article titled Setting Up Deer Travel Corridors. Right. It sounds to me like Jim did not read this article.
I did. I posted it online. I definitely read the article. But these deer, they're crossing like 400 yards away from where I want them to cross right now because I can't give them treats anymore.
Well, you got to put in some stoplights.
That's what I'm asking Sam. What are the stoplights?
We got to tell the squirrels, this corn is for you guys.
You can't do corn anymore, Dean.
Squirrels.
All right. Let's hear it from the expert.
Yeah, what would you do in that situation? You can't feed them during the summer. These deer are crossing literally 400 yards away from where I want them to cross to go onto the ag land. How do I get them to train them to come back through there? What would you do in that situation?
Well, first off, I'm the furthest thing from an expert, so yeah, you don't have to use that terminology again. But as far as what I would do in that situation, I mean, you said you have 9 acres of land.
That's it.
That's
A lot
it.
of it's
Okay.
open pasture land for horses.
So I view egg ground as destination food. Generally, when you have big egg nearby, that's your more often than not that's your nighttime feeding. So I would want to set up a food source on your property so I can catch them on the way to their destination food before they
That's
kick
what I
off right
usually
at
have.
dark or right after dark out into the big egg country. So I mean, I would be scouting that public land around you pretty heavily to see right where the best bedding is, and then I'd get my food set up with a good wind direction, preferably. And I like setting up my deer stand so I can hunt them on a northwest wind because I'm a
Yep.
massive proponent
Me
of
too.
hunting cold fronts. So I'd set the food up in a way where I could get my stand and blow my scent clean on a northwest wind. And then, yeah, like I talked about in the article, I would try to guide some travel corridors right into that food source, right past my stand location, so that I
And
can
what would
set
you
up.
use for a food source? I mean, what makes those deer, I mean, come to ice cream? What is it?
Oh
Other,
man,
I know I watched one of your videos and you said ice cream was, I forget what it was, but you said it was it basswood? I forget what you said it was,
probably red osier
but they were brown.
dogwood, basswood too.
That's what it
Basswood
was.
was, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
dogwood.
basswood
That's
buds
what
in
it
the winter.
was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as
But I
far
mean,
as
if I was
food,
to plan a,
go ahead.
go ahead. As far as a food source, what could I plant? I mean, I actually have a decent sized little area for a food plot. What could I plant to get them to say, hey, I need to go through this spot before I get to those soybeans?
So I mean, it's very, very soil dependent. So the first thing I would do is take a soil sample and see what you're working with. I don't. What type of soil do you have on your property? Do you know if it's like loamy? Is
Well,
it clay? Is it sandy? Is it
out out there, it's a
what's
mix. Honestly, I mean, it's sandy, I guess, in that spot.
okay?
Maybe a little
Well, then
clay.
you're maybe a little so like kind of a sandy loam, maybe little clay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're probably going to have to do some work with the soil in that scenario, where you can get some organic matter built up in the soil, so you can actually start building soil to grow something. But in general, I'll just share some of the forages I like. Actually, today, right before I jumped on this podcast, I was out seeding brassicas. Now, a lot of guys think, okay, why are you seeding brassicas in mid-June? Normally that's something you would plant around August 1st. Well, last year I seeded some long day brassicas. Most of the stuff we plant August 1st are 45 to 60 day brassicas. Well, last year I did some 80 to 100 day brassicas, and the deer absolutely annihilated them. I mean, it was, we never have overbrowse issues, or very rarely have overbrowse issues on any of our food plots because we have just so much food on our property. But last year they heavily selected these long day brassicas, and I mean, I was blown away with them. So I've only got 1 year in with those, but I absolutely love them. So I went out and seeded a bunch more again today. They can get 4 to 5 feet tall. I believe they're actually a selection from kale, and I found that kale has been a very, very attractive brassica, just kind of universally. And the three different forage brassicas, I believe, are a selection from kale. I added one bulb plant into the mix. It's like a 160-day brassica. It's called Major Swede. Now, that one's new to me, so I'm kind of experimenting with that. But yeah, those forage brassicas, anything that looks like kale has been really, really good. And I mean, other stuff I like. If you're trying to build soil, using annual clovers is a really good option. Balanza fixation, frosty persimmon, Kentucky Pride Crimson. They explode out of the ground. MSU Deer Lab did a study on clovers, and they found that annual clovers were much more attractive to deer than perennials, and they are a fantastic soil builder. So, planting those can be a really good option. I overseed everything with rye. Rye is like the ultimate savior to any food plot, even if you're straight sand. Rye will grow in sand. There's all kinds of things. We use corn. We use beans.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. We will plant fall plots with your traditional radish, turnips, kale, rape. I don't love rape. Radish and turnips are okay. Like I said, I've been a really big fan of kale, but I like variety in the plots. So, if I am planting a Nebraska plot, I want at least a few different things growing in it. So, yeah, lots of options out there.
Right. So that's the go-to then, is just really kind of mix it up, give them some options.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that
I don't know if you want my 2 cents. Well, we'll let Sam finish here.
Well, I was going to just add that one thing that I really follow MSU Deer Lab closely, because they just are doing a lot of cool research. But they found that deer will select plants based on what nutrient is deficient in that area. So that's why it's good to always be experimenting. I think in their study, the deer were purposely selecting high sulfur plants in a certain area because that nutrient was deficient there, and they know what they need. So they were actually seeking out high sulfur plants. So one guy can say, man, they smashed clover on my property, and you can go 2 miles down the road, and that guy will say, geez, they barely touched my clover.
Right.
Or you can, another guy will be like, they're all over my turnips. And another guy, it might take 3 years for the deer to hit their turnips. So it's really, really good to keep experimenting. Crop rotation is a good thing to do in your food plots anyway. But yeah, there's no silver bullet. I've definitely found forages that I really like that seem to work on a lot of different properties. But you should always be experimenting for sure.
Yeah, and before you talk, Jared, I've heard that too, as to where I knew a guy in central Minnesota, Little Falls area, that his neighbors were always in the clover and stuff like that. They did all their lanes to their kill blocks in clover. He could never, he did it, but it didn't seem to really take off, and the deer didn't seem to use it as much. So again, he experimented. So kind of the same thing. I definitely echo to where you've got to experiment and know what works on your property, just because, we've all seen it even in Georgia, fields of clover everywhere. That's what they use down there. Well, it doesn't mean it's going to work here or that the deer need it here. So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. No, I think it was a very thorough answer and really good information. I was going to go back to the direct question of, you've got deer crossing, would you say 400 yards
From me.
from you. Mm-hmm. You want to get them closer.
Well, they used to, when I could actually feed them in the summer and kind of train them to come through there.
Yeah.
But now I can't do that because
Correct.
it's
right. Because we have this feeding and attractant ban.
Right.
What we don't have is a deterrent ban. So what I would do is go 500 yards, just put out like a snarling wolf decoy.
Just like tie up some wolves out there? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's got to be like a fake wolf, right? But just snarling, and get the deer to like skirt around the wolf.
See, I like your creative thinking there. I do. I like your creative thinking there. I don't think anybody's ever thought of that.
Well,
maybe Sam could work that into his plans from now on out.
Right.
Animatronic wolves or whatever it is you're talking about.
Yeah. That way it keeps him off of the neighbor's property onto yours. I like it. I dig it. He should definitely put that into his plan, or at least his next article.
Right.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give credit to you. That was Jared's idea, right?
Yeah.
That was definitely Jared's idea.
That was definitely Jared's idea.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I'll take full credit. I'm gonna take that mouse from Chuck E. Cheese and make it look more like a wolf, and it'll be out there like playing the banjo or whatever it does.
That would probably work.
Deer coming right to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally understand. I think that would work, man.
Yeah. Well, you never know till you try.
right?
So
So Sam, I've been watching your videos.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was going to
by
say,
all means, go ahead.
I want to add one thing in. When he mentioned deterrent, um, I have done that before where if I have deer crossing, if it's land I control, obviously, I don't know if this 400 yards away, it's probably not land you control. But if it's land I control, what I'll do is I'll make, like, I can think of a property line on our farm where I wanted to move the deer basically closer to my stand location. So I cut the property line really hard and left a strategic opening right where I needed the deer to cross so that they would go right in front of where I was hunting. So I'll use. I mean, a chainsaw's a deer hunter and habitat manager's best friend, and I will purposely trash areas if I want to pinch deer down, in front of a certain stand location. I do this on the edges of food plots all the time too, where I'll cut really, really hard, both perpendicular and parallel to plots, depending on the situation. But essentially build up a wall of cover around the food plot with my chainsaw and leave a very obvious opening that my travel corridor works into right in front of my stand location and get the deer to pinch down exactly where I need them to be so that I can set up my 20-yard bow shot. So there's a lot that you can do with the chainsaw if you're trying to, push deer down in front of where you want them to be to set up your hunting opportunity.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but it might have been one of the guests on a Meat Eater episode. And he was talking about, just like you said, the two most important pieces of equipment that a deer hunter has in his arsenal are, number one is rifle and number two is chainsaw. You got to do the work, get the deer where you want them to go, and then you got your rifle to finish the job.
Yeah, right.
Or your bow.
Yeah. The bow. So, I mean, I guess my question would be, and I'm sure this is common knowledge, but I just want to verify. I mean, deer are kind of like us. If there's a trail, they're going to use it. If there's an open or easy area, they're going through there, right? And that's why you kind of make those openings, right? Because if it's easy for them, they're going that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I set these travel corridors, I'm creating the path of least resistance, and you don't have to get too elaborate with it. Literally 2 to 3 feet wide. Normally I got one of those weed whips with like a brush head. I'll go through and I'll cut it back using that and then come back through and spray them. I try to emulate a real deer trail. I get it down to bare dirts and make it look as realistic as possible. But and I also like to kind of wind them through the timber. I don't make just straight lines. But you give them a path of least resistance. You make sure that they can jump off that trail at any moment that they want to. They will definitely use it.
That's something that we should do on your property. It's just cut some trails and.
I mean, there is a main one to the old stand.
Yeah.
But we could definitely through the woods make some better ones.
Yeah, because right now they they use a couple of trails, but it splits off just before it gets to the main stand. So if we can narrow it down, where we used to have the ground blinds,
right?
There was some more trails, but over the years they've expanded that and filled in. So that's definitely something we can look into.
Yeah, so put a wolf decoy on the trail you don't want them to.
I think what we need to do is do Jared's idea and then take some of Sam's idea and just kind of see what works.
Or more Sam's idea. Yeah.
Well, I would go with Sam's too, but
I would
because I'm guessing an animatronic wolf is pretty expensive.
Well, or we could just
were the first one to use the word animatronic. I said decoy.
No, you said Chuck E. Cheese or
How about
something.
After you said animatronic.
How about we get a cutout of Jared and you just put that on the trail? That'll scare any deer away.
How about we reach out to our buddies over at Dead Nuts,
right,
and see if they'll make us a wolf target.
Yeah,
we can put that up there.
Then we can call our buddies at Wildlife Research and use their coyote juice.
Yes,
so that way it's coyote juice. That way it'll keep the deer away.
Right, and they'll have to come right where you want them to go.
I'm willing. I like experimenting, so I'm willing to try it
exactly.
all.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's a good idea.
You guys You might want to edit this part out because that sounds like $1 million idea and somebody's going to steal it.
Either $1 million or about a $6 idea.
You know, that is our contribution to the world, the hunting world. Take our $1 million idea, run with it, take pictures, let us know how it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just share it with us.
Right. And here we are.
Give us a spot to hunt.
Right. No, it sounds so. Timber stand. I was looking at your website. So looks like the four main things, obviously, other than your services of consulting and habitat work, but your timber stand improvement, forest stand improvement, food plots, and old field management. So I was really kind of intrigued by even the timber stand improvement and the forest stand improvement. Can you elaborate on any of that? Yeah.
Yeah, so timber stand improvement is that's a logging term. Forest stand improvement is a term that was invented by Dr. Craig Harper out of the University of Tennessee. If you ever get a chance to listen to anything he puts out there, I don't know that there's anybody that knows deer and deer habitat better than him on this entire planet. I mean, the guy's a genius. But he kind of coined that FSI term. And basically, that's just an all-encompassing term to talk about all the different ways that you can manage timber for deer. So that's where we're using logging. That's where we're doing crop tree releasing. That's where we're killing invasives. That's where we're cutting and bedding areas or using prescribed fire. Anything in the timber that's helping the deer is kind of under that FSI category. TSI is where you're cutting to improve the woodlot for more marketable timber. So you're cutting it in a way that you're creating nice straight trees that are going to market well, and you're going to get good money for them down the road.
And where do those trees go? Because I know it's not Home Depot.
There's all kinds of mills all over Minnesota. I don't get it too much into the logging side. I got a bunch of loggers and foresters that I collaborate with, but I don't know. They take it wherever the best market is.
Yep. And then with the food plots, so do you do the food plots, or do you more or less instruct people how to do it?
Yeah, I don't really do too much with food plots. Every now and then, if a guy needs help with kind of a poor man plot where, they need help seeding it, packing it, that kind of stuff, I can do that. But there's different food plot guys that I've used if they don't have the tools themselves. I've got, a few, at least around our area, that will kind of help with that side of it. My hands-on stuff is pretty much running a chainsaw, trying to improve the woodlot for deer, and killing invasives like buckthorn.
Okay.
That's what I go after in July and August, and even into the fall. I'll do some residential buckthorn clearing. So pretty much just running a chainsaw and doing consults.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that brings me a question. I have a buckthorn growing in my backyard.
You do?
It's 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's a big buckthorn. Yeah. It's the only thing growing in my backyard. Do I kill that thing?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. This is no remorse. That thing needs to die.
Destroys property.
Big buck down.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, get rid of it. It's.
I've been planning on it, but.
Well, I shouldn't say you don't kill it tomorrow, because buckthorn we don't go after till July 1st. Right now, we're still kind of in that sap flow time period. But as soon as July 1st hits, get yourself some triclopyr 4 and some diesel. 25% triclopyr, 75% diesel, mix it up in a bottle and cut it and spray the stump, and it'll be dead.
I was thinking about just pulling the stump right out of the ground myself, but
well, you can do that too.
With this diesel.
With my diesel.
Yeah.
So well, that's good to know.
Yep. Pull it out of the ground and then throw a grenade in the hole.
I got to make room for that storage container.
And just burn everything around it.
Yeah, I figured he'd say that because I had watched a couple of his videos, and I know he's kind of got a sore spot for that.
It needs to go.
Right?
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
I don't
it is.
like
And a lot of I was going to say a lot of habitat work that MDHA does is
Yeah.
A lot of the grant
buckthorn
projects.
removal.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of buckthorn mitigation all around the state. It's a serious problem.
Yeah.
And it's in my opinion, one of the best things you can do for habitat improvement is get rid of the buckthorn.
Right.
Absolutely.
I wish I was better at knowing what trees and everything are, because I can see what buckthorn looks like in the wintertime because it's the only thing still green. But this time of year, I'm not a good tree.
Come to my place.
Dean will be in his
herbivore.
backyard yanking out a burl oak.
Probably.
I love me my burrow. But yeah, I mean, just come over to my place. And,
I know what yours looks like, but it's just
right.
trying to.
It's just that one big tree there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been there
I
forever.
watched some of Sam's video and now I understand what it can look like in the thick. And I can see where that would be horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nasty.
Taking up the aspirin. Because Sam
Well,
loves
I will
his
say
aspirin
too,
growth.
if you're wanting to learn plants, their technology is a beautiful thing. There's a lot of apps out there, a lot of plant ID apps. My favorite one is called Picture This. So if you download that
That's
one,
the one I
it'll
rock,
pull you up.
buddy.
You got that one? Yeah, and you pull it on the main screen.
yeah.
It asks you to pay, but if you just hit that little X in the top right-hand corner, you can use the whole app for free. So, yeah, it's a great app, and it's pretty accurate. I mean, it's not 100%. I've definitely caught it where it's not giving me the right plant, but for them, it does a pretty good job for the most part.
I'm going to have to get that because,
That's what I used to your house the other night.
right, because a lot of times the wife is like, what is this? I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Send a picture to Jim. He's got an app, and he's the wise guy. He knows everything.
I'm not the wise guy. The app is the
yeah,
wise
the
guy.
app. So
And
I'm
it-
going to have to get the app now.
It is a really good app, and like you said, Sam, sometimes it will tell you the wrong plant. But I've also found that if you just take a picture of
Yeah.
a different part of the plant, like if you were doing the bark,
You can
do a
verify
leaf,
it.
and then you might get to the right answer.
For me, when I've used it, it seems to be as accurate almost every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a better photographer than you.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Would it work on, what did we find the other day?
Mushrooms?
Mushrooms. Would it work on mushrooms?
I've never tried it on mushrooms, but it
I
might.
haven't tried it on
That way
mushrooms.
You won't die.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried it with
try it.
animals. It doesn't work with animals, so just plants.
That's good. So you're obviously you do a little bit of habitat work, like you said, with your chainsaw and everything, but otherwise consulting is kind of your big draw, your big thing.
Yeah. No, I love walking new properties, and when I do a consultation, we're looking at everything from stand locations, access routes, travel corridors,
Wow.
bedding, old field management, food plots, the works, and it's really fun. I mean, I geek out on that side of it because anytime I walk on a property, it's just kind of in my mind, it's a blank slate, and it's just fun to dream about what it could be.
Yeah, no doubt. So what is your busy time of year? Is it
I mean,
summer,
really,
fall?
anytime outside of deer season. So, like I said, I'm a school social worker by trade, but I'm
Yeah.
doing this pretty much. I mean, most Saturdays throughout. I mean, the winter into the spring. If it's a deep snow winter, I might take January, February off. But for sure, all spring on the weekends, and then all summer long, I'm rolling. I mean, I fill my schedule up pretty fast, and I'm going this year. I was going to try leave August open for me to do some stuff out at the farm, and I've already pretty much filled up most of August too. That's the hard part, is when you kind of turn your passion into an occupation, then you run out of time to do a lot of your own stuff, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah. So how do you find time to hunt?
Oh, the fall. I mean, nobody wants you tromping through their woods in the fall, so I still get time
I guess that's true. Still get time
to
to
hunt.
hunt,
Yeah. That's when I finally get a little bit of that R&R time, and I mean, I just love. I don't care if I shoot something or not. It's just awesome being out and in creation and enjoying that time on the deer stand.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And Sam, you have a YouTube channel that you promote. Do you care to say the name of it real quick?
Yeah, it's just under my business name, Purpose-Filled Habitat Management. I've got well over 400 videos on it. I mean, I don't keep any secrets. Basically, if I think it, I
Right.
post it or make a video on it. So,
I've been watching several of the videos lately, and
Yeah, like
lots of good information there.
Yeah, 5,000 subscribers, over 5,000.
Right. I mean, there's
I'm
lots of
impressed.
good information. I mean,
Yeah.
you really seem to know your native plants, and how I mean, I like how you kind of tackle things without I don't know a better way to say this, a natural way, but you seem to use the native plants to their potential.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge piece of what I do is just trying to promote what should have been here, to begin with. I mean, we kind of messed it up with a lot of the stuff we introduced to Minnesota, but if we can revert it back to a mostly native habitat type, that tends to always be the type of habitat that the deer prefer. And I mean, a lot of stuff we plant in our food plots are not native plants. Like fruit trees, apple trees aren't from here. There's a lot of stuff we might add to properties that aren't native, but for the most part, when we're building up, acres of habitat, my focus is trying to get native plants promoted so that they can provide good habitat for deer, because that's what they prefer.
Right. Which is probably most sustainable, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and
I would think so. Easiest too.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I was going to ask you, Sam, because me and Dean were talking about this earlier. It's kind of a silly question, but I think you actually even made a video on it a while back. In the food plots, planting pumpkins.
Pumpkins, yes, we're talking about that.
I think you might have done this one on one of your videos. Mm-hmm. I think I might have saw it. Is that legal? Can we do that? Do you know?
Yeah, you can plant, as long as they're attached to the vine, you can plant pumpkins. I did, last year I planted sugar pie pumpkins, just because I had heard a lot of guys that had planted them. I'd been wanting to try them. They were I was $2.50 for a packet of seeds, and I think I made like 37 mounds. So I got a ton of, it's a very, very cheap food plot. And they hit them. I wouldn't say it was like a home run, but they hit them. They're a really nice food source for kind of later in the season. They started to get on them
after that first frost. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was even a little later than that. It was kind of right around when the snow was flying that I finally started to see them hit them.
Yep.
But I've also heard that it's kind of like brassicas. Sometimes brassicas might take 2 or 3 years for the deer to really find them and acquire a taste for them. A lot of guys that planted pumpkins said the same thing, that maybe that first year or two they didn't really necessarily hammer them, but once they kind of got used to them, by year 3 they devour them as soon as they're like after that first frost hits.
Yeah, and now I think about it. Yeah, at my place, that first snow, they just pound the pumpkins. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I know we planted pumpkins years ago in our garden where we used to live, and we'd pull them off and throw them a little bit deeper in the woods, and it did take probably a year, or it seemed like they hit them later the first couple of years, and then they started hitting them earlier because they knew it was like, oh hey, we know what this is.
Well, I think they sweeten up after they freeze too.
So then I started just leaving them in the garden. It's like, so that way it's not illegal, because you're not, then it wouldn't be considered baiting.
Right.
When I just chucked them into the woods, we never hunted over that. And actually I so over my garden about 30 yards away, I had a deer stand in the tree that I just used for practice. Just that way I could get practice with the angles. I never hunted out in my yard because where the garden was and where that tree stand was, I'd actually be shooting towards a house. Even though it was archery, I'd still be shooting towards the house. Right. It's like, I wasn't going to do that. Well, we had somebody call us in one time because, they said, well, they're baiting deer and hunting out of their tree stand. No, I wasn't. Like, listen here, Gerald. I wasn't hunting out of my practice
that
tree
sounds
stand.
a lot like Jared. I did not call you in.
Well, it might have been Jared.
Well, I think if anybody could see your setup there, they'd know that was just your yard and you were shooting your target.
Right, exactly, because I had the target out there. So I had a guy stop by and talk to him and explain to him. And I said, this is, even if say I was hunting out of it, as long as I leave it in the garden on the vine, then it's just more or less a kill plot. He goes,
Yeah.
correct. But as soon as
Yeah.
you take it off the vine and throw it in a pile, then it's considered bait. I go, right. I understand how that works. Trust me, if I were to do that, I wouldn't be hunting out of it. I'm not hunting out of my stand anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
30 yards from the road.
Exactly. 30 yards from the road, 22 yards from the house at an angle. So it's like, yeah, no. So,
Yeah, I was just curious because, I mean, pumpkins grow great at my place.
oh, and the deer love them. They love
They
them in
do
our
love
place.
them
We
at my
left
place.
them, and the pumpkins and zucchini. They would eat zucchini too.
Boom. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd leave like that last batch of zucchini that's like, we already have so much,
Right.
we're leaving it. So we would leave it and the deer would attack that too. So, but anyways,
Yeah, that was a tangent. But anyway, I had to ask.
we went down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
or pumpkin hole.
Pumpkin hole. Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. But anybody, if you're listening to this, you got to check out Sam's YouTube. Tons of information.
Oh, yeah. Like I said,
I mean, if you
over
want to
400
learn
videos.
stuff, yeah, watch them. I mean, I had them playing all day today while I was working.
Yep. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Joe Canella because he's got to be one of your biggest fans.
Yeah.
and the hinge cutting and stuff. I know he's used that on his property, and he says it's worked really well. And I know he was, with this latest article, the setting up the deer travel corridors. I know he's used some of that, and along with your videos, and he's a big proponent of it. So. Shout out to Joe for this. He's probably jealous because we have you on and he's not here.
Right. We probably should have told him so he can be here.
I should have.
Right.
I definitely appreciate Joe because he's my original connection to MDHA. He reached out. It was probably 5-6 years ago when I think I wrote actually a blog post about. I don't even remember what the blog post was about. I think it was about managing deer habitat on a budget or something like that. And that might have been my first article for MDHA, but he was the one that reached out from there and got me connected. And it's been a lot of fun to be able to write for the magazine and stuff. I mean, writing is definitely something that I enjoy a lot. I don't feel like I always come off, or say exactly what I want to say in videos, but it's nice when you write, you got time to sit and think and process. And it's just, it's a lot of fun. So it's been a pleasure to be able to write for you guys.
Oh, we appreciate it too.
Yeah, we really do. I love when Joe, brings you up and is like, yep, we need to do an article with Sam in here. And I love them. I think they're great.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how many whitetails meetings I've been in where we're like, well, we should really find an article about X topic, right? And Joe immediately jumps in. Sam could do that. Let me reach out to Sam.
And I think it's great, Sam, what you do because, a few years ago or even maybe before you started, you had QDMA and NDA to where they had this whole plan. Well, it was more based in Georgia or the South, to where you're focusing on obviously what is in, like you said, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and I've heard stories of these guys coming up from QDMA and doing their consultation, and more or less it sounds like they model it after what works in Georgia, but it doesn't work here. So yeah. I think it's kudos to you to be able to do what, because what's here.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's you hit on a massive pet peeve of mine where folks don't acknowledge that there are regional differences with all this stuff, right? What works down in the Ozarks doesn't work up here. And what works in the Ozarks isn't going to work on the East Coast. Deer are different based on what region you're in, and the plan of attack is different based on the region you're in. I've seen it where a southern guy came up here and he had the landowner hacking and squirting and killing all his aspen. Well, if you're from Minnesota, that's sacrilege. That's terrible. You're literally destroying your property if you're killing the aspen, because aspen's one of the best things that we have for deer. You just have to know how to manage it. So, if you're ever looking into any kind of consultation, and it does not have to be me. There's a lot of good northern deer habitat consultants, but if you're ever looking into something, my advice, no matter, and if you happen to be listening to this and you're from Georgia, make sure that you select somebody that is from your region and that knows your area, because yeah, guys that are from the South or even from the Midwest just don't know what it's like to manage for deer habitat in the North. We are just a very different beast up here, and regional differences, I mean, they are a factor. So we got to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would never hire a fishing guide from the Florida Keys to take me out on Mille Lacs or something,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Well, and in Minnesota, it's probably just, it's the same, you know, to where, like you said, you're right on that border of, you know, ag land and forest. So you've kind of got to know the ag land versus, you know, if you have a job clear up here in the forest, where it's definitely going to be different.
Oh yeah.
Property management, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Southeastern Minnesota is way different than, you know, northeastern Minnesota, and the plan of attack is going to look way different. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You can even be an hour from your own property, and it'll look completely different.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I would love to dive a bit more into your own hunting if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
What's your preferred method to take? Are you an archery guy, firearms?
Yeah, archery all the way. I could take or leave rifle hunting. I still go with my tags open during that time, but I mean, I was 15 years old. My third day ever out bow hunting, I put like 4 screw-in steps in a tree, climbed up a tree, and shot a 150-inch 13-pointer, and just, I mean, I was hooked ever since. Like, I mean, it's
that'll do it.
I bet.
That'll do it every time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't always. It's my third nicest archery buck to this day, so it's not like it happens like that every year. But I
Did
fell
you
in
say
love with
third nicest buck?
He said third.
Yeah.
Third?
Yeah.
What's your first nicest buck?
Well, that one's a unicorn. That one will never happen again, and it's the nicest deer that we ever knew of being on our property. But it was one that I was able to get. I think it was 3 years ago now. Yeah, and it was a 180-inch mainframe 10 that had a big old flyer coming off the main beam. But he was one we had some history with. He was a high ground buck. He wasn't a swamp buck, and I saw him. I think it was the third time I had seen him off stand when I finally got an arrow in him. But we actually had two of them running around on our farm that year that were that big. The one was 180. The other, we got his sheds. He's 170 inches, and he got hit by a car that winter after he shed. But,
man.
Yeah, they're the 2 nicest bucks we've ever had. And it was pretty fun because, at that point I would have been probably 7-8 years into really, really serious habitat management on our farm. So it kind of just felt like the ultimate culmination of all the work that I had done. Yeah. 150-inch deer is huge for us. Like that'd be a really, really nice deer. So to have 2 of them, 2 booners running around is, I don't expect that to happen again. Not saying it couldn't happen, but that was a pretty fantastic hunt. Yeah, it was just fun.
Yeah. Well, I was just starting to like you, and now I kind of hate your guts.
Yeah, it's a little tougher up there in northern Minnesota. I get it.
Yeah, a little bit.
But
I had a 20-inch deer running around my property.
But our archery stories aren't so different, him and I. So I started archery hunting. I moved up here,
right?
And that first year, I had a hand-me-down bow, and I don't have the deer measured, but it's probably the second largest deer I've shot.
Oh, for sure.
Actually, it might even be the largest. That one might top my Kansas buck.
I think it would
for width
and that was a straight up Minnesota swamp buck.
That was straight up. He came right out of the swamp. I saw him, and so ever since I got him, I've been hooked to archery. Yep, I rifle hunt. killed bucks during rifle season just because, same thing. Open tag, you're going to hunt rifle season, but archery is where it's at for me too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And then my largest bucks have all been archery kills. I've never killed a big buck, with a rifle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you hunt Kansas, and you still haven't got a 180.
Because I have to get pretty much coal bucks down there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know you like those excuses.
Give me a lot of money and I'll get a big one.
Well, I think that goes for all of us, dude.
Right.
So, Sam, how much does it cost to come hunt your farm?
I don't own the farm, so sorry, I can't answer that question. It's been in the Tumberg family name since my great grandfather Eric Tumberg came over in the late 1800s. I think he came over during the Homesteading Act of, I think it was 1892.
That is awesome.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's been in the
Great.
family name forever, and that's the plan, that it'll stay in the family name, but my name's not on the property, so yeah, I can't grant that permission.
Funny coincidence. Here in about 7 months, my last name's going to be Tumberg also.
I see how you guys are.
Yeah.
Here couple weeks ago, you guys were Jacobs.
I'm with you.
I never said I was going to become a Jacobs. I said I love the Jacobs family, but I am legally changing my last name to Tumberg.
Right.
It's much closer than Kansas.
It is closer than Kansas. I completely understand that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Traitors.
Just a little bit.
Oh, man. All right. Well, we mentioned that you are a pretty consistent contributor to our Whitetails magazine. Our summer 2025 issue just came out, start of the month?
June 1st.
It probably hit mailboxes like the 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you have a great piece in there called Setting Up Deer Travel Corridors. We always love seeing what you contribute for us. And now I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you a member of MDHA?
I am. Yeah, I'm
Love it.
going to re-up my membership, but I made sure to. Normally it's when Joe reaches out to have me do an article that kind of prompts in my mind that, I got to make sure I re-up my membership. But I should be correct.
Right,
I feel like I did that last winter.
You should be. And I was actually going to look before we came over here, and I totally spaced it.
Yeah, that's all right.
So we'll just say that I'm
We
current.
got confirmation here.
I was say, I believe you. You're current.
If you're not, we'll send you renewal tomorrow.
Yeah, if you're not, you're going to be current. But no, we appreciate everything you do for MDHA and everything you do for deer hunting. I mean, it's great. Everybody be sure to check out his YouTube channel. It is,
Chock full of good information. If you're,
it really is.
Upper Midwest for sure.
Yeah, and really almost kind of anywhere can use a lot of the information, that Sam talks about too. So
Yeah.
I just like it because it's based in our area, and I can
for sure.
I understand. I know what plants he's talking about when he's talking about them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just to be clear, that's Purpose-Filled Habitat Management YouTube channel.
Yep.
And Sam, what's your website?
It's
Address.
pfhabitat.com.
pfhabitat.com.
Yeah. So if you own some property, obviously anywhere up here in the north, I heard you mention even Pennsylvania, but especially in northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, maybe the Dakotas, check Sam out. He can set you on the right path.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. How far are you going to go, Sam?
Like I said, I prefer to stick within the borders of Minnesota if possible. I will work a little bit out in kind of eastern South or North Dakota too. I've had a few jobs out that direction because it's not too far from me. But if I can stick within 3-4 hours of home, that's kind of the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Cool.
I can respect that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate your time.
Right.
And love everything you do. Love reading your articles. So.
Yeah, keep the articles coming. I love sharing them online too.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sam. And
hey, thanks for having me, guys.
We'll look forward to future articles and maybe having you back on in the future if you're willing.
Oh gosh, yeah, I got all kinds of extra questions because I was going to ask him about the property here in Grand Rapids.
Right. I know we may have to have you make a trip up and just kind of take a look at what we have even at Jim's place and MDHA and Jared's. Just make a good, maybe a couple days of it.
Right. I mean,
checking out what we have.
I mean, mine will be easy. Just say put a pile of corn there.
For the squirrels.
But I mean, the MDHA property would actually, you could probably do some good there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we got a great guy doing our food plots right now, but yeah, the actual
moving the deer around, I think would be helpful.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think it'd be great.
So,
yes, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Beers on Dean.
Yeah, we'll be in touch on that one to see if we can plan that out. So
awesome. All right, Sam. Well, we're going to let you go. We appreciate your time and look forward to some more of your YouTube videos and articles and whitetails.
Sounds good. Well, thanks a lot, fellas.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association has been building our hunting and conservation legacy over the past 40 plus years through habitat, education, advocacy, and legislation in Minnesota for Minnesota.
Purpose-filled habitat management. Let's work together to change your property into a deer hunting haven. Check us out at pfhabitat.com and our YouTube channel at pfhabitat. Minbow. Member-driven, bow hunter focused. Join today at mnbowhunters.com.
Opinions, topics, and guests featured may not necessarily align with the views, beliefs, goals, or mission of our sponsors.